This is an age that is in desperate need of heroes to look up to, people who inspire us, people who, though just as weak and imperfect as all of us, have been able to touch the lives of others in extraordinary ways. We call them saints. When I was a child, I remember being fascinated by a man called Father Damien, who became for me a real hero. Father Damien was a young man from Belgium who heard a call from God. His call was to go to Hawaii. Now that doesn't sound like a bad deal at all, but he was called to a particular island in Hawaii by the name of Molokai. In those days, part of that island functioned as a colony for lepers, and it was to these suffering people, afflicted with the disfiguring disease and forbidden contact with others, that Father Damien went. Although he felt both fear and revulsion, he listened to the call of Jesus. "Take up your cross and follow me. For whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." He overcame his fears and inhibitions, gave up his life, and followed. For 16 years, Father Damien served the sick and poor lepers in that colony of Molokai. He was not only their priest, offering Mass and hearing confessions. He was father to them in every way. He dressed their wounds, built their houses, made their coffins, and even dug their graves with his hand. He did everything for his beloved lepers there. Eventually, Father Damien himself contracted the disease, and in 1889 died of it among his beloved lepers on the island of Molokai. Although considered a Belgian saint, Father Damien has a special relationship to the people of our own land, for he is the 9th recognized saint to serve on land that is now part of the United States. At the canonization ceremony in Rome, the King and Queen of the Belgians were present. The President of the United States sent a personal delegation of 6 people. But perhaps the people that made the greatest impression at the ceremony were the lepers from Molokai, who made the journey to Rome to be present at their beloved Father Damien's canonization. We don't have a lot of heroes held up to us these days. People seem to delight in destroying them, condemning them for their human faults, rather than admiring them for their good deeds. If you are parents or grandparents, tell your children the lives of the saints. I grew up on the lives of the saints and found them very inspiring for my own life. I could identify with them precisely because they were not perfect, but still dared to do great things. Father Damien also experienced his share of calumny. Following his death, when people were praising his heroic life, the Protestant clergy of Hawaii began to attack him and accuse him of all sorts of things, saying that he was egotistical and did it all for his own fame, and that he contracted the disease because of a loose moral life and all sorts of other things. It was one of my favorite authors who came to his defense, Robert Louis Stevenson, a Presbyterian himself, wrote a vehement defense of Father Damien, powerfully destroying all the criticisms of his enemies. All of us are human. with faults and failings and weaknesses, but all of us are called to be heroes in our own little corner. Father Damien, a Catholic saint, has inspired many non-Catholics throughout the world. Even in the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. stands a large bronze statue of Father Damien. There is one outside the Capitol building in Honolulu as well. But even more impressive is the testimony given by one of the other great heroes of the modern age, Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi said that it was Father Damien's example that inspired him to work for the good of the poor of his own country and to liberate the people of India. And Gandhi, a Hindu, said that looking at a hero like Father Damien, it is worthwhile to look for the source of such heroism. That source was love. It is no longer popular to look up to heroes. People now seem to delight much more in tearing them apart. How beautiful to belong to a church that still believes in holding up the lives of real people to inspire us. How beautiful that we can look to these heroic people with all their faults, with all their weaknesses, with all their flawed humanity, and find real inspiration. There are heroes right here today, some of them quite invisible, some of them quite extraordinary, all of them quite flawed. Not all of us are called to go into exile in Hawaii. Not all of us are called to work with lepers. But all of us are called to stand up for the marginalized. All of us are called to have hearts full of compassion for the sick, the suffering, the poor. All of us are called to take up the cross in order to follow the crucified, to set aside our fears and inhibitions in order to make a difference, to lose our life in order truly to find it.